All right, let's dive into what women look for in relationships. We're looking at a French wedding website article. It's called 10 Things Women Expect from Their Relationship. Now, you might think this is only for couples about to get married, but I think there's something here for anyone in a relationship, no matter what stage.
Yeah. It is interesting. The article is framed around getting ready for marriage, but the advice, it's surprisingly relevant for all kinds of partnerships. It's like they've figured out what people want in a relationship, like how to connect and be happy.
Exactly. So
Mhm.
let's jump right in. The first point might surprise you. It's about surprises.
Yeah. This is where it gets interesting. It's not about big gestures, it's about small surprises woven into daily life. The article says those are more effective than a big gesture once a year.
Interesting. I've always thought of surprises as big things, but I'm starting to see the value in small moments.
Yeah, it's about consistently showing you're thinking about your partner
Yeah.
and that you care enough to put in effort, even for small things.
Hmm. That leads well into the next point, which is about shared activities, shared lives, getting out there and doing things together, outside the usual routine. They even give examples like trying out each other's hobbies, taking a dance class, or joining a sports team together.
Yeah. If you look at the research, shared experiences create lasting memories and a feeling of togetherness. When couples do things they enjoy together, they're building a history, a tapestry of experiences that bind them together.
Right. Creating a life, not just existing in the same house. And I think it's great how the article talks about trying each other's hobbies. It's like stepping outside your comfort zone to connect with your partner.
Absolutely. Some even argue that shared experiences help couples handle conflict. Like when they disagree, they can think about those good memories, and that reminds them of their strong foundation.
That makes sense. Now, on to a really important point. The article talks about genuine care, emphasizing empathy. It's about going beyond just matching your partner's mood. Instead, actively listening, offering support. When they're struggling,
This is where the article gets specific. It's about moving beyond sympathy, just feeling sorry for someone, to empathy, really understanding their experience.
that's so true. I think it's easy to fall into that trap, trying to fix our partner's problems when they just need someone to listen.
Exactly. When you approach your partner with empathy, you create a safe space for them to be vulnerable and share their feelings without judgment.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Let's move on to the next point. Feeling loved for who you are, imperfections and all.
Oh, yeah. I think about that a lot in my work. It's amazing how much outside pressure can affect self-worth, especially for women, like the article says. I wonder, do you think that's different in other cultures?
That's a great question. I'm sure cultural norms play a role
Mhm.
in how people see themselves and their relationships. But I think the desire to be loved and accepted, that's universal.
Yeah, I agree. The article even mentions small things that can help, like genuine compliments, accepting that your partner doesn't have to be dressed up all the time. So true. It's about appreciating your partner, not who you want them to be, or who society says they should be.
Right. And that's important, especially today.
Ah,
With social media and everything.
absolutely. Speaking of showing love, the article talks about attention and affection, little things that say you care.
Yes. It's about those small bids for connection, like remembering important dates, asking about your partner's day, even leaving a sweet note. They mean a lot.
Right. Those small gestures can make someone feel seen and appreciated. I think they're important in long-term relationships because it's easy to fall into routines.
Exactly. When you do those things consistently, they build intimacy over time. It's not about big declarations of love. It's about those everyday actions that show you care.
Okay, that for something crucial for any relationship, communication. The article is against letting anger build up, and it emphasizes talking about problems calmly and constructively.
What I find interesting is how the article emphasizes respect. Even when you disagree, it's about talking like adults, focusing on advice, support, and finding solutions together. It's so easy to let emotions take over when you're upset. But you're right, letting anger build up never helps. It's much healthier to address things head on, calmly and respectfully.
Exactly. But even though the article emphasizes open communication, some relationship experts would say that predictability and stability are just as important.
Hmm, that's an interesting point. So it's about finding that balance
Yeah,
between communication and a sense of security.
right. And that brings us to the next point in the article, giving each other space. It highlights how important it is to have individual time and space
Hmm?
in a relationship, like spending time with friends, pursuing hobbies, or just having some quiet time alone.
I could see how that could be tricky. Some people might think
Yeah.
that it creates distance.
Yeah. That's why the article talks about it in terms of respect. Respecting individual needs. It strengthens the relationship because it lets people maintain their sense of self. And then
Hmm.
they can come back to the relationship feeling refreshed and energized.
I get it. It's not about creating distance. It's about a balance between togetherness and independence.
Exactly. Okay, let's talk about something else the article mentions. Making your partner feel special. Not like they're being compared to past relationships.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Comparisons can be so damaging, especially now with social media.
I agree. The article says it's important to focus on the good things in your current relationship. Instead of thinking about the past, it's easy to compare. But that can hurt trust.
That's a good point. It makes you realize how important it is to be present in your relationship
Okay.
and to appreciate your partner.
Absolutely. And I think this is where mindfulness is important, being aware of your thoughts and choosing to focus on the good things.
Okay, let's talk about something that can cause problems. Dividing chores. The article is very clear. It says chores should be split fairly and equally. It even says that the phrase helping out is a problem.
The article is challenging traditional gender roles here. It's saying that both partners should be responsible for the house.
I see their point about the language. Helping out does imply that one person is primarily responsible.
Right. It's about being a team, not one person doing everything.
I like that. It's about sharing the responsibility.
Exactly.
And this connects back to some of the earlier points. Communication, empathy, appreciating each other.
You're right. It all works together.
So we've covered a lot. Surprises, shared experiences, empathy, unconditional love, attention and affection, healthy communication, personal space, appreciating your partner's uniqueness, and sharing responsibility.
It's fascinating how everything is connected, like pieces of a puzzle. When you put them together, you see a picture of a good relationship built on respect, communication, and sharing responsibility.
We'll be back in part 2 to talk more about this. See you soon.
Welcome back to our deep dive into what women want in relationships. Before the break, we were talking about sharing chores, making things equitable.
As we were going through those 10 points, I was thinking about how connected they all are. Like they build on each other to create this picture of a really good relationship.
That's a good observation. Yeah. You can't really separate them. They all affect each other.
Yeah.
For example, you need open communication to figure out how to share the chores, like we were just talking about.
Exactly. And then you add those other things like empathy and making your partner feel appreciated. It all works together.
Yes, exactly. And what I like about this article is that it's practical. It's not just talking about love. It gives you things you can actually do
Yeah.
to make your relationship better.
Yeah. It's like a roadmap. But instead of places, it shows you the attitudes and behaviors that lead to a happy partnership.
I like that analogy. Now, I want to change gears a bit and talk about the psychology behind some of these things. Like, we talked about surprises, but why are they so good for relationships?
I'm not sure. I mean, surprises are nice, but are they really that important?
Well, think about it this way. Our brains, they like new things, and they like rewards. So when something unexpected happens, and it's good, like a surprise from someone you love, your brain releases dopamine.
The reward system.
Makes you feel good.
Wouldn't you say
Yes, exactly. And that feeling, it gets connected with your partner. And that newness, it can be especially important in long-term relationships because things can get routine. So those surprises, they keep things exciting.
I see. So those little surprises like the article talks about,
Yeah.
they can really make a difference.
Yes, they can. Now, let's go back to empathy, which the article mentions. It's so easy to try and fix things when someone just needs to talk.
That reminds me of something. I was going through a tough time at work, and I just needed to vent. But my partner kept trying to give me advice. I finally had to say, just listen. I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to hear me.
That's a perfect example of the difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is feeling sorry for someone, but empathy is about understanding their feelings and seeing things from their perspective.
Yeah. It's about creating a space where your partner feels safe.
Yeah.
To be themselves,
And
share their feelings without being judged.
Exactly. The article talks about that. And it's important.
It is. Now, the article also talked about making your partner feel special, not comparing them to others. That's so relevant today with social media.
Yes. It can be hard to see all those perfect relationships online and not compare.
Exactly. It's like We're always seeing these perfect versions of love.
Right, and that can make it hard to appreciate our own relationships.
Absolutely.
And this is where mindfulness is important, like we talked about. It's about being present in your own relationship, focusing on what you love about your partner.
And remembering that those perfect moments online, they're not the whole story.
Exactly. Every relationship has its ups and downs.
Okay, now let's talk about dividing chores. The article says it should be equal, a true partnership.
Yeah, I'm glad they talked about that. It can be a big problem because of traditional gender roles.
We can. It's easy to fall into those patterns without realizing it.
It is.
In my own relationship, we've had to talk about it
Yeah.
to make sure things are fair.
It's about being honest
I'm
about what you expect and then working together.
Yeah, like a team. And it's not just about the tasks. It's about being there for each other emotionally, too. Supporting each other's dreams.
That's a good point.
Sharing the burden.
It's about teamwork and respect.
And that reminds me of the article's point about communication.
You're right.
It all connects.
It does.
You can't have a partnership without communication.
Now, let's talk about personal space, some people might say. That spending time apart is bad for a relationship.
I can see that. It's about finding the right balance.
Right. But the article says that personal space is important for growth and for feeling refreshed.
So it's not about being distant. It's about making sure both people feel fulfilled.
Exactly.
I like that.
It's important to remember that a good relationship is made up of two individuals who also come together as a couple.
Yeah.
That's important to remember.
Especially today, when the idea of being a couple is so romanticized.
Okay, now, one last thing before the break. The article talks about making your partner feel special, not comparing them to others.
Yeah. I've struggled with that. It's hard not to compare when you see so many perfect couples online.
It is hard. But the article says to focus on your own relationship, appreciate what you have.
Appreciate your partner's unique qualities.
Yes.
Celebrate what makes your relationship special
Exactly.
instead of focusing on what's missing.
Right.
Be grateful for what you have.
That's a good way to put it.
So, as we finish this part, I want to leave you with a challenge. Think about everything we've discussed. Communication, empathy, partnership, appreciating each other. What's one thing you can do this week to make your partner feel loved and appreciated?
That's a good question. We'll be back in part 3 to wrap things up. But for now, take some time to think about how you can use these ideas.
Welcome back, Deep Divers. I hope you had some time to think about that challenge. What will you do this week to make your partner feel loved and appreciated? It's amazing how much we've talked about from just those 10 points.
Yeah, it's really interesting how complex relationships are, those 10 points. They all work together.
You know, before we finish up, I want to talk more about communication. The article talked about calm and constructive communication. We all know we should do it, but it's hard when you're upset.
It is hard. It's about being aware of your emotions and knowing how to control them. The article says to discuss problems like adults. That doesn't mean you can't have emotions. It means you should step back if you're too upset to talk calmly.
Yeah, like hitting pause on the argument. Give yourself time to cool down. That can stop small disagreements from becoming big fights.
Exactly. And that connects to what the article said about personal space. Sometimes you need time alone to process your feelings.
That makes sense. You know, it's funny how all of this goes back to respect, giving compliments, sharing chores, communicating calmly. It's all about treating your partner with kindness.
You're right. Respect is so important. It's the foundation for everything else.
And speaking of respect, I'd love to hear more about what you think about making your partner feel special, like the article said. Not comparing them to others. That's hard with social media and everything.
Right. It is hard, but it's important to focus on the good things in your own relationship. Appreciate your partner and what makes your connection special. Don't forget, those perfect couples online, they're not always real.
It's like comparing highlight reels.
Yeah,
You only see the best parts. It's easy to forget that every relationship has its problems.
that's true. And you know, if you're feeling insecure, it's good to talk to your partner about it. Sharing those feelings can actually bring you closer.
So instead of keeping those feelings inside, talk to your partner about them. Create a space where you can both be honest.
That's a good point. Feeling safe and being able to trust each other is so important. It's about knowing your partner won't judge you.
Well, we've come to the end of our deep dive, and I'm amazed by how much we learned from those 10 points on that French wedding website. We talked
Wow.
about communication, Empathy, responsibility, and appreciating each other.
It's been a great conversation, and one thing that really stood out to me is the importance of being intentional. You don't need grand gestures to have a good relationship. It's about the little things you do every day to show your partner you love them.
So deep divers, go out there and use what you learned. Create the love story you want. A story filled with happiness, adventure, and a strong connection with your partner. Until next time, happy diving.